Ukraine is ready to accept a ceasefire deal with Russia in exchange to U.S. military aid and intelligence sharing. U.S. President Donald Trump could continue to help Ukraine with secret information about Russian troops. Meanwhile, U.S. delegation will hold talks with Ukrainians and Russians this week. So, under what conditions Ukraine is ready to accept a ceasefire deal, and why doesn't Trump resume aid for Ukraine? According to Financial Times, Ukraine will try to convince the U.S. to restore intelligence and military support at talks in Saudi Arabia, trying to prove that President Zelenskyy wants a quick end to the war with Russia. Kyiv intends to offer a partial ceasefire with Russia. This is about stopping long-range strikes and hostilities in the Black Sea. Also, the Ukrainian government hopes that progress in the talks will force Washington to cancel the decision to freeze intelligence sharing and arms supplies. One of the Ukrainian officials added that in the short term, Ukraine will prioritize establishing ties with the United States. At the same time, Ukraine sees progress in the ceasefire talks as a favor for the restoration of military and intelligence assistance. Also, a U.S. Department spokesperson says that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be in the Saudi Arabia city of Jeda from Monday to Wednesday for talks to advance the president's goal of ending the Russia-Ukrainian war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy told EU leaders in Brussels that he wants to conclude a general framework agreement with the US that would pave the way for further, more detailed agreements on mineral resources and security guarantees. The broader agreement would begin with the end of airstrikes, naval operations, and strikes on energy and civilian infrastructure. It would continue with a prisoner swap and the return of Ukrainian children abducted by the Russian authorities. However, despite Ukraine's readiness to accept a ceasefire, NBC News reported that according to US officials, a mineral deal would not be enough for Trump to resume aid and intelligence sharing. US President Donald Trump has privately signaled that a signed agreement between Washington and Kyiv on mineral extraction will not be enough to restore aid and intelligence for Ukraine. NBC News reported, citing an administration official. Trump wants the deal, which would give the US a stake in Ukrainian mineral resources, to be signed, but he also wants to see a change in Ukrainian President Zelensky's attitude towards peace talks, including a willingness to make concessions such as giving up territory to Russia. Trump also wants Zelenskyy to make some progress toward elections in Ukraine. Moreover, US continues to share some defensive intelligence with Ukraine. That is information that helps Ukraine to defend itself against attacks, explains that it still has a duty to warn, but it does not provide targeting information for Russian targets. That means the US can warn Ukraine when intelligence shows the Russians are preparing to attack, but it can no longer provide targeting coordinates so Ukraine can strike first. Meanwhile, US President Trump said on Sunday that the United States is almost done with the suspension of intelligence sharing with Ukraine and expects good results from future talks with Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Reuters has reported this quote. Trump said, "We are almost done." CIA Director John Ratcliffe said on Wednesday that the US has stopped sharing intelligence with Ukraine, putting pressure on Zelenskyy to cooperate with Trump in holding peace talks with Russia. On Thursday, the US official will meet with Ukrainian delegation in Saudi Arabia, in particular, to determine whether Ukraine is ready to make concessions. The fate of the mineral deal between Washington and Kyiv also hung in the balance during the Jeda talks. Trump expressed optimism about the talks. Quote, "I believe we are going to make significant progress this week." Trump said he believed Ukraine would sign the deal, which Kyiv believes should include US security guarantees. Trump also said his administration was considering options for tariffs on Russia and that his administration officials were not concerned about military exercise involving Russia, China, and Iran. At the same time, US President Donald Trump said he is seriously considering imposing banning sanctions, other sanctions, and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire deal and a peace agreement with Ukraine are reached. Quote, "Based on the fact that Russia is now absolutely beating Ukraine on the battlefield, I'm seriously considering imposing wide-range banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and violent peace agreement are reached. Trump called on Russia and Ukraine to sit down at the negotiating table right now before it's too late. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio assured his Polish counterpart Radoslaw Sikorski that no one's threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink. The U.S. Secretary of State called Sikorski hints at the unreliability of billionaire Elon Musk's SpaceX as a service provider. Rubio took the opportunity to state that without the Starlink satellite connection, quote, Ukraine would have lost the war a long time ago, as the Russians would be on the border with Poland. No one threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink. American billionaire, meanwhile, Musk said that he would never disconnect the Starlink network for the Ukrainian military, even if he disagrees with Ukrainian policy. Musk noted that without Starlink, Ukrainian communication lines would be collapsed and jammed, as the Russian communication lines will be jammed, quote, we would never do such a thing and would not use it as a bargaining chip. Also, the United States will meet in Saudi Arabia this week not only with Ukrainian officials, but also with the Russian ones. The meeting will be held separately. This was reported by CNN. This week, separate meetings of senior Trump's administration officials with Russian and Ukrainian officials will be held in Saudi Arabia. It is also not known in which cities the meeting between US and Russian officials is to take place. The US-Ukrainian talks will be held in Jeda. They will take place at a time when both countries are working to strengthen their relations after a quarrel in the Oval Office. Moreover, US Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said that he is concerned about the suspension of intelligence sharing between the US and Ukraine and the cessation of military aid supplies. Graham noted that until a potential ceasefire deal in the war unleashed by Russia, he would provide Ukraine with all necessary intelligence and military assistance. Quote, if we abandon Ukraine, it will be worse than in Afghanistan. That I do not think that Trump has any desire to do that. Meanwhile, the UK is advising Ukraine on negotiations with the United States ahead of a meeting between Ukrainian and American delegation in Saudi Arabia this week. This was reported by The Times. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell visited Ukraine over the weekend to advise President Zelenskyy before Ukrainian counterpart take part in negotiations with the United States on Tuesday. The publication writes that British are eager to avoid a repeat of the disastrous row with Trump in the Oval Office. Keir Starmer is also trying to convince Trump to resume intelligence sharing with Ukraine after the abrupt cessation of this process last week. Britain hopes that Trump will be persuaded to cancel his decision on intelligence sharing, which is seen as a more urgent and feasible demand rather than restoration of US aid. Over the weekend, Starmer spoke with the French President Emmanuel Macron and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte about the need to resume intelligence sharing with Kyiv. Powell also pressed the issue in a call with Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.